Collective Creative Initiative Drink the Ink, Bailey Harris Kelly is on, everyone, providing equal opportunity despite economic circumstance. The time is, seeing it in the corner there, double checking, 3:30, and a Candid Q&A with Jaymi Hensley is coming your way. But before, still know that we have that amazing offer, 12 months free offer, access to Backstage still running. And if you want to ask a question during this session, all you have to do is subscribe for access to Backstage and subscribe to ask questions with our practitioners. We only have an hour. It's amazing to have Jaymi joining us now. The numbers are piling in. Good afternoon.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, very, very good, thank you. Welcome to the CCI. Just very firstly, because news have just come out, many congratulations. Work is coming in at last.
Finally.
Genie.
I've got a job.
How are you feeling when you're the only contracted member so far? So how's it like being like leading the show, as it were, already?
I'm really excited. I mean, the team at Tag and with Pearson Castings, I've worked with these guys before on many occasions, but when this opportunity came about, I just obviously, because of the circumstances, just took it with both hands. But yeah, I feel very, very privileged, and I know how lucky I am to have a job that's going to be happening in a few months and something to look forward to, which I think everyone needs at the minute. And I was a bit worried about Panto. I do them every year, and when obviously all the government guidelines meant that Panto wouldn't be happening this year, not only for us as performers that do kind of rely on that guaranteed job every Christmas, but also for the audiences that love Panto. It's a very special time, obviously, at Christmas, and spending it with family, and even more so this year, I think it's going to be even more prevalent. So yeah, to be a part of something like this and be the first one in the country COVID-friendly Panto is something to be very proud of, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, exactly. Like leading the way. You're talking about their working with Pearson Casting before. With regards to collaborators, auditions have now opened. Casting house has been opened for people to join you as such for the show. What do you want to see in collaborators that you will ultimately be working with in the future and beyond?
I think what's most exciting about this time is the fact that so many people are in need of work, that we are going to be able to have a pick of the best and see an array of people that necessarily you wouldn't get to see, because usually, especially by this time of year, everybody's already booked up for their contracts. But I think what the most important thing is that we've all learned as performers is the love of the job is that we miss. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's Wembley or if it's local community theatre. What we've all missed is being on stage. And I think that's the thing I'm most excited for and looking to welcome in our cast is people that just want to be there and have a good time and try and forget the last 12 months, really, and just do what we love. And I think if we get a great, solid cast, it's going to show audiences that necessarily don't understand what it takes to be in the arts. The arts is a really difficult industry to be in. It's a brilliant one with great rewards, but you're constantly comparing yourself to others. You're constantly fighting for jobs. There's no security. And I think what Panto is going to do in this is show the greater masses that aren't involved in the arts that this is a job. It isn't just a hobby and a pastime, as Oliver Dowden said in one of his statements. This is our livelihood and this is our job, way up to the biggest of the big, way down to people that just do it part-time. It's still our income and what we love to do. So if we can show the masses what they have been actually missing during this time, I think that's a job well done for us.
Exactly, and with that will come more value with,
of course,
with us as performers, and also our audiences. Thinking about that love and the livelihood for you, Panto it fuels a child's imagination, it fuels an adult's imagination. So for you, where did that bug for the industry, for performing, stem from?
It was Panto. I'd always been, when I was at primary school, quite an outgoing kid, but performing arts wasn't really where I was going. It was more gymnastics. I was in gymnastics when I was a kid. My mum's a dance teacher, so I was always around music and dancing, but gymnastics is what I fell upon. I had an injury when I was about 9 years old and I broke both my wrists, so I could no longer express myself with gymnastics, and the closest thing to me was, well, my mum's a dancer and I wanted to keep doing that performance. I fell into dance and performing, and I think it was probably around about 8 or 9. I was in school, and you have your little choirs in your school hall, and I just remember singing, and I remember the choir teacher being quite taken back from what I was producing. And I think for an 8-year-old, that's quite a everyone tells you as a kid, oh, you're good, you're wonderful. But when I saw like a stranger, I was like, oh, actually, no, you have got something here. And I quite cottoned on that maybe I was more advanced than the other children of my peers at what I was doing, which was singing. So then everyone loves applause. Everyone loves positive feedback in whatever it is you do. And I think that was quite infectious for me as a child, that I knew way back then that I was different in terms of my sexuality. I wasn't a normal boy. I didn't want to play football. And to have someone celebrate me for something that I was naturally doing was infectious for me. And it was Panto. I auditioned for an open audition for the Gordon Craig pantomime in Stevenage, and became one of the cast as one of the juveniles. And I just remember the sheer depression and like world crumbling when that Panto season finished in January, that I was like, no, this is what I want to do. I miss being on stage. I miss the discipline. I miss the applause. I miss the camaraderie with my peers and being around other people, children, adults that are like me. And from then it never stopped. It was never a matter for me of if this was going to happen. It was always a matter for me of when. And that's not in an arrogant way. It was just a self-belief that I had to tell myself, that I knew from a young age I had to commit solely to this and not do things that other children do by playing out in the park and stuff. I had to work hard and commit to it. And I've always had that work ethic. And I think ultimately that's what's paid off for me and why I'm still now at 30, still managed to blag it 22 years later.
And with that, would you say that you're creative that looks to the future then, or you're very much rooted in the present, just letting it, or like almost let the possibilities come to you, or is it a culmination of the both? What's helped you make a success of yourself?
I think it's both. I always look to the future with hope. I think you've always got to have hope, and I'm one of those people that's always got a million ideas going at once. And I think that's the biggest key, is that you can't pigeonhole yourself into one idea, because when that finishes, you've always got to think what's next. So I'm always thinking 4 or 5 times in the future, and I've always got a trajectory of where I want to be. For me, it was, I knew I went to stage school when I was 16, 18, but I knew at that time, we're talking 2006, I don't know how to put it, I wasn't necessarily your leading man status back then. I was a bit shorter, a bit chubbier, and the industry wasn't what it is now, which is about inclusivity. It was very much your handsome prince looking guys got the leads and they had the big baritone voices, and it was a different place 15 years ago. So I came out of Brit School, which is an amazing college because it is a pure scholarship college and it's government run by the Brit Foundation. So I always said the Brit School was a little bit like a misfits college. It was kids of different shapes, sizes, colours, creeds, loving performing, and they weren't your 5'10" chorus line girls from the producers, which were blonde with the nice figures as it was back then. And I left college in this world that was like, okay, no, I still don't fit in. So I fell into the live gig circuit because I knew I wanted to sing and I couldn't hold down a normal job. And that led me to X Factor. So I knew that I wanted to do X Factor, but I always knew that I had other things that I wanted to accomplish in my life. And I had no expectations going into X Factor that it was going to work. But coming out of it, I had a record deal and I made contacts. And I think what you have to do is you always have to make as many contacts, have self-belief, and have a good 5-10 year trajectory, so that if something doesn't work, you've got something else to look forward to or fall back on. So yeah, I'm not a very much in the moment person. I'm always, as soon as I book a job, I'm like, right, okay, well, this is going to last me this long. What do I do after? What else do I want to do? I'm not just a singer. I'm not just an actor. I have loved every facet of my industry, be it down to makeup and hair and costume design and radio, TV, presenting. You have to, I think, diversify yourself so that you can always fit into any place that you need to be at once.
And have that sense of longevity. Thinking about,
yeah, I think so.
The X Factor experience, going onto the live gig scene. Obviously, something like that, you've just been launched into very quick fame, as it were.
Especially when we were on the show, it was at its peak. So it was overnight in magazines and stuff, which is quite tough to deal with. But I always had the mindset, this is what I worked for, this is what I wanted, and I went into it with open eyes. So I wasn't someone that was like upset by the fame, as you call it, or the having to wake up early and do interviews. I managed to keep a private life, but I knew full fact what I was getting into. And I think you just have to embrace that and be prepared that you aren't going to get sleep, you aren't going to see your family in any part of the arts. And you have to be quite selfish. And I think selfish has such a wrong word around it. I think people see it as you're being selfish and you only care about yourself. But you do have to have a kind of self-preservation, selfishness about you, that you are your product. You don't have a boss, or you don't have a CEO of a company that you can work up in different levels. You are the full package.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure you're looking after yourself and making tough decisions for yourself. Otherwise, you're only doing yourself a misjustice, is the word.
How do you find a sense of detachment, as it were, then between the artist, the product, and actually just the home life person that, like a couple of bevies?
So I mean, again, mine was very early on in life. So like my name, as it's spelled, Jaymi, that's my stage name. I'm James William, and that's who I was. And I, from an early age, knew that I had insecurities, as every person does, as James. So I kind of, not to sound too much like I need to be put into an institution, but had a split personality kind of person that when I went on stage, went in for audition, that was him that was going. He was confident. He knew what he was doing. So I've always married the two to be close enough together, but have that release, that especially in X Factor, I always joked that as soon as I left Wembley, and I would go home every Sunday on X Factor, which no one would do, but I live in Luton, which is about 30 minutes away from Wembley. So my family would come watch the show, and I'd make a habit of making sure I went home every Sunday night after the results show, staying at home. X Factor weren't too happy about it, but I did, so I could get some normality and keep that. And I always said, as soon as I hit Junction 1 service station out of London on the M1, that's where he left. He was there. And my real at core person was who came home. And I think you have to have that as a performer. You have to have a switch off. It's hard for us because we are creative and we're always, like I said to you earlier, looking for that next job and what can I do next. But you do have to have a time where you do just turn off your phone and be you and give your energy and love to your loved ones around you. Because I think mental stability and having a good grounding around you is the key thing for anybody in any job. Otherwise, you just get wrapped up. It becomes a lifestyle rather than a pastime. And I think when it becomes a lifestyle, this industry is when it becomes quite a dark place because you have nothing else to do apart from wallow in either not booking a job or being neurotic about booking a job or having no time for yourself. So yeah, you do have to have a healthy balance, and it's hard and it isn't easy to do, but you have to fight that way to look after your own sanity and your own health.
Picking up on what you said about grounding and having people around you, thinking about the family and friends that you have around you, thinking about the ensemble that you've had in productions, and thinking about the boy band. For you, what are the differences and the similarities between those different mediums?
I mean, there is no difference for me. I mean, and my career shows that I don't do well on my own. I'm not good with my own company. I don't do well being a soloist. I have a great family and friends around me. Like you said, when you join an ensemble, you have to treat that ensemble as your family. They are your family. They are the people you see every day. The band was the same, and I had 3 boys around me all the time. And I think that's key, is embracing that and not living too secular on your own. So for me, I've kind of orchestrated a world where I always have people around me. But then conversely, that may not be what's good for you as a person. You may be an insular person who likes your own company, and that's the time you need to give yourself. You need to find out who you are and work on that and create that environment around you to keep you feeling safe and energized and in a good, positive headspace.
Expanding that, for those that, because we have an array of people that like tune into the show, some audition for drama colleges, in drama colleges, professional performers, they're aspiring. For those that are always told, oh, you need this life experience, this work experience, this, something along those lines, where can people really look to find their own individuality and not be a byproduct of things that they see on the television?
Hugely important. Yeah, it's so important. And I think you have to, if we've decided to be in this industry, we are a master of, I've always said in the funniest way, a master of deception. We manage to try and be someone else and do something else that isn't natural to humans. Being in front of people and giving music, which is an emotional thing, it comes from within. Bearing ourselves as humans, especially as Brits as well, we're very closed off. So it's unnatural for humans. So you have to find a way where you can take heed from your own experiences. And when I got Joseph, that was a big eye-opener for me, that I was like, right, okay, I wanted to do this musical, I'd got the role, but how do I find a way to tap into this where I don't get bad feedback or it looks fake? And I took the Joseph story and said, well, how is this like my journey? And for me, it was about my coming out journey. And Joseph has nothing to do about coming out or being gay, but I found a way to marry not fitting in like Joseph does with his brothers, as me as a teenager coming out, and sticking by my guns as Joseph does the whole way through, and then eventually the world loving him and becoming the Prince of Egypt was me coming out as a gay man and being accepted for it. So you have to find those little things, however odd or minute it is, always find a way to stay true to yourself and bring any experience back to your own experiences. I just had a singing client earlier. I was teaching a girl to sing. He's auditioning for drama college tomorrow. And bless her, she's been going through quite a tough time in hospital, and she's quite poorly, and she's got a breathing tube at the moment. And she wanted to sing Don't Rain in My Parade from Barbra Streisand. And I said, that isn't going to work for you tomorrow. You aren't going to be Barbra Streisand and Funny Girl tomorrow because you have issues. So we looked at songs and looked at ideas, and we ended up with a wall in my head from everybody to talk about Jaymi, because she had this barrier with herself that she didn't feel comfortable. So I think you have to always bring it home. Bring whatever you're doing home so that it stays authentic and true, and then you can only be doing the best job for yourself.
We've got a question here from Nyara. We touched on Joseph there, but I guess expanding on what you just said is, did you find anything about Joseph that surprised you?
Yeah, I was totally out of my depth. At the beginning, I don't really know what I had planned, but I got there on the Monday, and they're like, right, so we open on next Thursday. And I was like, what? I've got 9 days to... But yeah, it was the resilience that surprised myself. That actually, if you commit to something fully, and I had no choice, I had to work all those hours, and I had only 9 days to get the show and open in front of 2,000 people, that if you give yourself no option but to succeed, I don't know if that's the right word, but if you give yourself no option and you aren't your own self-saboteur, then anything is physically possible, like in any walk of life. So that was the biggest surprise, and that came 8 years after I've been doing this professionally. Like I said, 22 years of being on stage. I'm still learning, and I was willing to learn, and like, okay, well, how do I accomplish this? Hard work, sure determination, pure grit. And yeah, I mean, there's always days that you're not as good as the person next to you, but if you don't look to the side of you what other people are doing and you just focus on yourself, yeah, I think that was the biggest thing I learned out of that.
With before going into an audition, what do you have a certain a process, as it were, when it comes to that? So you do gear yourself in. You're talking about just having that focus there with yourself, but do you have a certain, perhaps even almost technique that you bring into the room that just helps you click into place?
I learned to command a room quite early on in auditions, that the audition starts as soon as the door opens. So all those anxieties and panics and nerves, I leave at the door. And like I said, I become Jaymi, the performer, as soon as I walk in the door, and I'm confident. And even though I'm dying inside, I make sure I control the room. I walk straight up to the table. I shake everybody's hand, because then that gives me the power in the room. And that, for any walk of life, if someone comes in confident, we all sort of sit back and go, oh, okay, well, they know what they're doing. So they're already in the mindset, and it makes it easy. I do prepare. I don't try to over prepare, because I think, again, that's when you can go wrong. I think, like I said, music and art has to be a feeling. So nerves are always good to have that little rumble in your belly. And unless it's an audition where you are given material, which is rare in the first audition. You're never really ever given material in your first audition. I always go with something that I'm comfortable with, something that I know like the back of my hand, that I know suits me. And that's it. I don't try and be too clever. I try to also adapt the material I take into what the show would be. For instance, when I went into Joseph, I took some more poppy musicals. When I've auditioned for Les Mis in the past, I took a more legit piece, just so you kind of know what you're doing. I do also sometimes tend to dress appropriately to the role, which again, some agents will really say against, and they like you just to turn up in black to be a neutral canvas. But if I, like I said, was going for Les Mis and I turned up in a leather jacket with my tattoos out and boots, they're not going to see. So I would go in a a clean white shirt and some blue jeans and just look that kind of part. Again, I was going for Rock You, I would turn up in a leather jacket just to hint towards. It's all of this is just about making yourself seen. And I'm sure, you know, knowing James and Rosie, that's what this is about. You have the cast and director, their job is to see you in the role. Nobody is the role. No one going for Les Mis, going for Valjean is a 40-year-old man that's been in prison and been a slave for the last 20 years that's adopting a child living in the French Revolution. That's not possible for us to really be that person. So you just have to find a way again to make that person yourself and keep a little bit of you in the role. I think.
With regards to the rep, because I know we do a few acting through song online sessions at CCI. For those that are thinking about looking at that rep folder, is it for you? You always talk about when you're talking about the person that you were just teaching, that think about what's related to you. Would you say the acting foremost always comes before the technique?
Well, yeah, because I feel like if you're in the position to be getting an audition, you're good enough anyway. Your vocal, do you know what I mean? Your vocal is good. So we only do this, I think, and we only get to a certain stage where you are good enough to do the job. And that's not to sound detrimental to people that don't. But do you know what I'm trying to say? You work this far, so you're going to have the goods and the actual anatomy to make the sound nice. Again, it's about choosing a song that obviously makes you sound nice. But I always treat a song like I always read it as a book first. I always look at the lyrics and read them, because I think with song, we're so used to now, especially in our era of having radio and TV, that sometimes you just hear the song as a load of notes and the words go to it and it's more about how it sounds. But a song is a poem put to music, which ultimately is a letter, which has been written by someone. So they've written those words as it came from their mind. So you have to always find a way to find that in the song. So what it actually means. If I was to speak it, and I make my students, and I was always taught to read a song as a monologue before you learn the notes. And yeah, I think that's the biggest advice. You just have to strip it back to what it actually is. And I always say there's certain people, and this isn't musical theatre critic, but Robbie Williams is our biggest male pop star probably of all time, hasn't got the best voice, and I'm sure he will say that he's got a great voice, but he's not got the best voice in the world. He's not Freddie Mercury, he's not Tom Jones, but he's got this wonderful way of telling the story through the song. And everyone would rather be moved than listen to someone technically smash a song out the park. That's great once. To have someone who can technically nail the notes and it sound beautiful the first time, that's great. Second time, you're like, oh, I've heard this. But if you can make someone feel something through music and you work on that part of it, then the biggest battle's done.
Yeah. And vocally looking after yourself, what do you do to, when you are doing those 7-8 shows a week, what do you do just to look after that apparatus, to pace yourself?
I mean, I'm probably the worst person for this question because I'm not the best at looking after myself. I am, but what works for me, I don't believe there's a blanket rule for everybody. I think we get wrapped up in what some vocal coaches, and we read, this is what you should do. You should steam, you should do this. It doesn't work for everybody. You will get there. Your body will naturally kick in like anything. Like if you run for 6 months, you're going to be able to do 30 miles at the end. If you can only do 1 mile at the beginning of the 6 months. So after a while, your body does become like a machine and it gets used to it. But yeah, you just have to sleep. I think sleep is the biggest thing for me. Not too much alcohol. Just all things in moderation. But I also believe that if you completely change your lifestyle overnight, you're going to completely wreck it anyway. My singing teacher smokes, and she said if I should give up and I will be better for it. But if I just quit smoking, quit drinking, quit eating dairy, started living a different life to what I've done for my entire life, like cold turkey, then it's going to fail. So you have to find a way to always transition and find what's working for you, and yeah, that, like, not look at what we're told to always do. It's not the same for everybody. Some people can go out. I've been in shows of people that have gone out every night, drunk every night, smoked 20 fags a day, belted on karaoke's at 5 a.m, breaking their vocal cords, and then turn up the next morning at 9 o'clock and they're hitting top C's and soprano. And it's like, that works for them. They know that's their body. Yeah. I can't do that. Some people can't do that. But
I wish we could all do that.
I mean, so do I. That'd be the dream. But yeah, it is down to what works for you. And I would say always prepare enough time before you do a job. So we usually get a good few weeks before, once we booked a job, to when we actually start the job. So I would say start prepping in those couple of weeks, finding out what works for you. And just always use it all the time. Speaking, singing, warming up every day is important, however it is, in the shower, humming. I always tend to, what I found work for me is I've got quite a low speaking voice, quite dirgy speaking voice, which isn't my natural speaking voice. I'm a top tenor, a singer. And if my natural vocal cords sit quite about there, quite up here, but I tend to always speak lower if I'm speaking, because speaking knackers my voice out. So I keep it right in the bottom of my larynx. So I'm not putting any pressure on my vocal cords when I have to do interviews or doing lib and stuff like that, because that's what I know knackers me out. So I've adapted so that I can rest my singing voice when I speak.
Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting. It's just like with regards to questions, everyone, we are approaching the halfway mark. I know there's a couple of regulars that are tuning in right now, but if you do want to ask a question to Jaymi, please, all you have to do is subscribe and ping a question in the box below right here. Unfortunately, we can't answer your questions, obviously, when it's on playback. So if you're live right here, right now, get those questions in. Any question within reason. No swearing, please. We're still daytime.
Yeah.
Yes, Jaymi, just thinking about really as we're approaching the halfway mark, mental health, because I know it's a very big thing, especially during this whole pandemic. It's taken its toll on everyone, and we were talking about this lightly before we went on here at CCI. For you, you know, you're this actor, TV personality, singer, performer, leading role. What do you do just to really look after yourself in that sense? Because we've been talking about so many different things, but we haven't thought about the core of you and just looking after your mental well-being.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I've definitely struggled with probably mental health all of my professional career. I don't know. I mean, there's no rule book to it. I try to stay busy. I mean, I'm usually only completely content when I'm working, which is a bit of a curse, I guess. But I don't know. You have to talk. You have to rest. I think that's the biggest thing, and not beat yourself up. And that doesn't come easily. It comes with experience, like experience. I think you just have to keep finding a way. But I also think realizing that as performers, I don't think I know any performers that don't struggle with mental health. And I think when you accept that this is going to be a part of your life, struggles mentally and self-belief, they're always going to be there. And I think when you come to that realization, it gets a little easier while you're sitting there with problems or demons, especially in COVID, and you're going, oh, this is my fault. What can I do about it? When you realize there is nothing you can really do about it other than try and heal, I think that's when it becomes easier. And I think, yeah, it's difficult. I don't really know. I think it's just something you need to figure out on your own. There is talk in there for people. I think we're very lucky to have an NHS in this country. And I know a lot of people that I've spoken to. I went on to antidepressants about 5 years ago, just for a short course after we lost our record deal. Because for me, that was like, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do? We're no longer signed to Sony. How am I going to pay for my house? How am I going to do my job without a record deal? And we had like a life sort of coach. She said, go on these. It would just make things a bit clearer. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't need that. But I did. And I did need it. And it helped. And I think if you're just open to the fact that this is going to stay around forever, there is no cure. But there are resources out there to make it easier for yourself. And when I think it's like anything, like mental health, I class as an addiction, not as an illness. I think once it creeps in, you kind of get addicted to that highs and lows. When the lows are there, you like to beat yourself up. Not that you like to, but you do, and it becomes like a vicious cycle. But then when the highs are there, you get addicted to the highs. And really, if you wanted a real answer, so why do you still do your job? Why do you still give yourself those massive highs that are always going to drop you back down again? But it's an addiction. So and with an alcoholic, everyone says the first step is saying I'm an alcoholic. So the first step, I think, for really dealing and helping yourself mental health is saying, yeah, I've got an issue. I'm not ashamed about my issue. I don't know the answers. I'm not going to have the answers, but I'm going to work damned hard to try and make it better for myself. And it goes back to being selfish. I think you have to put yourself first, and if you can't look after yourself, you're never going to be able to look after anybody else. So you are the most important. This is your one shot in life. We don't get a rerun. We don't get to 80 and go, oh, I didn't like that, let's go back. That's it. So you've got to do the best you possibly can in that moment. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no rule book. And I think as long as you're putting one foot in front of the other and trying, that's the best we can possibly do.
When you meet moments of challenges in your career, do you look to certain inspirations? Do you find inspirations in particular work or a particular person, a TV personality, a film, a particular actor, actress that you look to maybe just change things?
I think it's there. It's there for people to look at. And one thing I do is, especially when I hit 30, I was like, right, okay, I've been very blessed. I've had an 8-year career where I have worked. But I'm also like, okay, what's next? How am I going to sustain this? Or have I done enough? Or have I hit my peak yet? Or is it going to end? All of those insecurities you have when you hit certain milestones in your life. And one thing, I've got a few pictures. I've got a picture of Simon Cowell, of Oprah, of Tina Turner on my phone. And there's a little quote next to it saying, well, at 30, Simon Cowell was broke, living on his mum's sofa. Had just got sacked from the newsroom, the post room at Sony. Oprah was a lady that had suffered rape at 30, was broke, no money. J.K. Rowling was broke at 30, single parent. So there's no time frame on anything. Things can always turn around. Tomorrow is uncertain. We never know what's around the corner. But saying that, I think the biggest inspiration you have to find is yourself. Because my mum, my fiance, everyone goes, well, what can I do to help? And I said, well, there's nothing. There's actually nothing you can do to help. And that's not me saying you're useless, but there's nothing you can do. You can't book me a West End job tomorrow. You can't make me #1 in the charts. You can't get me an Oscar. No one can do that other than yourself. Yes, an agent helps, but no one, you have to really find again, and it keeps going back, and it's a self. You have to, if you don't believe it, you've got it in you to do anything you set your mind to. And especially in our job, like I said earlier, we've done that. We've put ourselves out there to find a job that isn't the norm. We're not in a call center. We're not punching the clock. We had that self-belief once to believe that we could do this or that we were good enough to do this. So you have to have a dark conversation with yourself and say, come on, snap yourself out of this. You can do this. And if you don't, you tried. And that's the worst it can be. So yeah, I think relying on stories or people that have made it helps. But yeah, you've got to tell yourself, like, we're going to do this. May not work, but we're going to do it. We're going to try hard, and that's it.
We've got a question that's just come in from Gilbert. Thank you, Gilbert. Is saying, what are you most excited about for doing Panto this year? Are you looking forward to being back on stage?
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I can and I can't. I'm a bit anxious. I had my first gig last Friday this year, and I was really anxious because I was like, I don't know what it's going to be like. It's not going to be what we knew last year. So I'm excited. I'm apprehensive, but yeah, I can't wait to go out there and just have some fun. And I'm glad it's Panto for Christmas, because I don't think we've had such a crap year. Everyone's had such a crap year this year, haven't they? That it's like a little bit of magic, a bit of sparkle, a bit of camp at Christmas is all going to give us an hour and a half of respite, and that's all we need. That's all we're going to get is an hour and a half, realistically, at this time in what's going on in the world. But just for that hour and a half, if the audience and the cast can just have a bit of fairy tale and forget what's going on outside. And the great thing about this Panto is we're not in a theatre that's going to have 4 empty chairs, 1 chair, 4 empty chairs, 1 full chair. We've adapted our surrounding so it doesn't feel like we're in a COVID place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We've done sofas, but they're done only for that purpose, is to fit the COVID brief. So it's going to be the only thing you know. It's going to be the only way that it can be. So I was worried that if theatres did open and you had 4 seats next to you, the audience is going to be like, oh, this is a bit rubbish, a bit empty. And theatre's something that we go back to time and time and again because we've had a positive experience the time before.
Mm.
So the great thing about this is we've adapted our surroundings to make it positive and make it happy for everybody, so that when things do go back to normal, people aren't put off by COVID or how that had affected theatre.
What over the years of doing Panto, what have you learned from from it? The evolution of Panto, as it were. If you were going to do it again, from everything that you've learned, what would you say to your younger self?
Oh, that's tough. It's a laugh and it's fun, but it's hard work. Like, Panto is tough because it is constant happy, 3 shows a day, 7 days a week. But I think you have to realise why you're doing Panto. A lot of jobs, we all do theatre for the audiences. We all do that. We all do performing to give sent back. But it's quite a selfish job. You do it for a bit of applause and you do it because you like being on stage. Whereas Panto, I think if you go into the mindset that you're literally just there to make kids and families happy, it just puts you in a positive mood every day. Because it's grim. Christmas is grim. If you think about it, it's a lot of money you've got to spend, busy places, and it's rubbish weather. So December's not exactly the nicest time of the year, but Panto gives you that respite to be like, oh, it's all fun, it's all magic, that Christmas spirit. And that's why I love it. I just love it because it makes me happy.
Yeah, I love it. And with regards to advice, just something that you carry with yourself, perhaps from day to day or week to week, or just now again on the year, we're talking about you're looking at personalities of seeing where they are in their stages, but with regards to performance and progression, as it were, what do you look to in that sense? Is there a certain quote that you bear in mind?
No, I do try to adapt all the time. I try to push myself so I can always learn something new. But you have to be realistic sometimes that we're not capable of everything. But I always think education is key. Like, one thing I've learned in lockdown is that as soon as you say, I want to go back to dance classes, because I just want to constantly evolve myself for my own well-being, and always trying to better yourself isn't a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. I think it's a thing that we should celebrate ourselves. Is it always trying to be better than the person we were yesterday in whatever aspect is something great. So yeah, I think constantly learning, going to vocal lessons or watching what you eat, and yeah, that's where I always look to. There's no way that this is the best I can be. I can always be better tomorrow in anything. I can hit a higher note, or I can sing a song I couldn't tomorrow. If I work all day on it, it's going to be better than the first thing. And like I just said to my client I had then, she's very nervous at the beginning. She wouldn't sing on her own in front of me. But by the end of the hour, she was singing it fully on her own, and it was 4 times the volume. The diction was better. The notes were on point. And I was like, well, look, you were better than you were an hour ago. So an hour before that, she was like, oh, I can't do this. I'm like, well, you can do it. So yeah, always learning, always evolving, adapting is really important, I think, in performing.
With evolution, evolving, being that leading role, that figure in Joseph, for you, now that you've done such a giant colossus show, what's next? Do you have a list of shows that you want to tackle? Do you have that bucket list there centered around you, or is it just
not
seeing?
Really, because Joseph was never on the cards for me. It was something that I'd never thought about. So when it came along, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, fine. So I tend not to, just in case I don't get the roles. I learned that very early on. I always wanted to play Fiyero. And I went for it about 5 years ago and I didn't get it. And I realised I wasn't right for the role when I didn't look the part, not necessarily look the part, but I wasn't. I'm shorter than most of the Elphabas. So I had a realisation that I was like, if I really set my sights on something and I'm hell-bent on it, if I don't get it, I'm upset. So I just always see what's out there. I always just say to my agent, please put me forward for everything. If I get it, perfect. If I don't, I don't. There's a few roles I'd love to play that I'm too young for at the moment. And there's a lot of roles I'd love to play that I'm the wrong gender for. But yeah, not so much. Not at the moment. No, nothing that I'm like hell bent on doing. And again, I'm in a really weird place in my life. I'm 30, but I don't necessarily look 30, and I'm not old enough to play the other role. So I'm in this weird bracket at the minute where I don't really know where my casting fits. But the whole world's going to change. When we get back to normal, it's going to be a completely different kettle of fish. And one thing we've all got to realise is that when we do go back to work on auditions, there's going to be 10 times more people vying for jobs than there were a year ago. So I think we'll have to be a little bit realistic that the next year or so we're not going to necessarily always book the job we want to get. But it doesn't mean you can't do other things and find other ways to do it. And I always said, you know what I think for me that I always wish I'd done more of? In Joseph, I realised, especially being in a cast, the leads, actually, we're not the juggernauts. I basically sat in my dressing room for most of Joseph, wore a loincloth, came on and sang some ballads. That realistically is what Joseph does. The cast, the ensemble, are on stage 3 hours. Hard, singing, acting, dancing, costumes, quick changes, moving set, swings, all of that. And they're the unsung heroes for me. And everyone always goes, oh, I want to be the lead in a musical. And it kind of, I think, poo-poos the ensemble a little bit, that they're just the ensemble, they're the backup. No, they're not. They're the lead of a show. We as the leads are the back-in. We're the back-in that just stands in the middle and gets the praise for it. So I think there's nothing wrong with being like, okay, no, I can't be seen for the lead, but being ensemble in a West End show or a theatre is just as important, and if not more important, and just a bigger accomplishment and greater achievement, because I always said I can't be ensemble. I'm not a good enough dancer by any standards. So that actually makes me less bookable. Whereas someone who is a strong dancer, singer, actor, who can be ensemble but is also good enough to be a lead or a first cover, they're the ones that are special. They're the triple threats, as we used to call it back in the day.
It goes back to that sense of value again, doesn't it?
Yeah, having your own value, whatever it is. Just having self-value and not letting people tell you otherwise. And that's it.
With value, we have a question from IM, just saying the downsides of Panto. Obviously, there's a big positive with you going into Panto this year, but everything else being affected and put on hold. Where do you sit on that mark in the industry that the industry has ultimately completely suffered by the consequences of the pandemic? Yeah.
It's tough. I know a lot of us, and I'm sure we're all feeling a little bit hard done by. Because, like I said at the beginning, this is our job. This is a valuable, hard-working, multi-billion-pound industry that we're part of, and it kind of feels a little bit like we've been chucked to the back of the heap. And I do get annoyed at people that aren't in the industry when they say, oh, it's not that important, and oh, but there's more important things going on. I said, well, yeah, you've used your iPad, you've watched Netflix, you've listened to radio, you've listened to music, you've watched film. That's art. And that's the only thing that's kept people from suicide, from depression, from loneliness. I said to my nan, can you imagine this pandemic had happened back when she was a child? She said, well, we would have just sat there with candlelight and read a book. Maybe not even be able to afford a book. So I think people need to be a little bit kinder to us as performers, that actually what's kept everybody sane is art in some way or the other, with live streams, Facebooks, all of that. But we have to also understand that I'm one of these people that doesn't want theatre to go back until it's ready, which is just a massive juxtaposition, because yes, I want to work, I want to earn money, I want my friends, my colleagues to earn money, I don't want to be out of work and losing their homes. But the bigger picture is, like I said earlier, if we make something like art which is fully stemmed on positive emotion and negative experience, we could damage our industry for a long time. That said, it's down to our government and for us and non-performers to fundraise and to find other means to keep our business afloat, because it is a business, it's show business. And yes, theatres will struggle not having Panto, but that doesn't stop every performer who would have been in a Panto doing a live stream and earning some money on a PayPal or something for their theatre to keep them open. We have to diversify, because I do genuinely believe it will be a huge negative to our industry if we do this half-cocked. And that's the truth for me. Other people might feel differently, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah, we said in previous interviews that people don't want to go back to how theatre was. I thought that was quite, yeah. I think that was just perfectly placing it. It was really nice hearing it from you there as well. For you, what there is diversifying, but looking at the future of this industry, what do you want to see more of when we start to get back to a sense of normality, whatever that may be, 3-4 years time?
I'd like to. I would hope that casting and directors and production houses were a little bit more open-minded. It does become a bit of a boys' club, our industry, if I'm honest. I mean, you do always see the same leads in the same roles, the same ensembles, and the same people getting jobs. Yes, they've struggled also, but there's a whole lot of us that have struggled. Not just, I mean, there's a whole lot of people that have struggled that could really do with that break. So I think it's going to be hard work, but I think there has to be a lot more people seen for auditions and show that they are capable and worthy of that role. I think we also have to have a fresh slate, that if people have made mistakes in the past in a job or, do you know what I mean, whatever, we can't hold on those things. It's if someone makes a mistake in a production house, they say you're never going to work for that producer again. We kind of, I think, need to take the brakes of everything that's happened in our life and go, this is going to be the new normal. We can make it a much better place, a much more inclusive place. I believe that happens again down to what's going on with movements at the moment, down to race and discrimination. I think we should broaden our horizons on every aspect of the word. I don't think we have the right anymore as human beings to pigeonhole people. I think we started making waves especially with people of POC, people of colour, being able to audition for roles that were predominantly white before. Again, but maybe that should go on to other people. Maybe there should be some way that we do roles that had been, I don't know, for women available to men, or roles that were for people of colour available to other people. We just have to really work here in a way that we can go, how can we make our industry somewhere fun, inclusive, full of love again? Because it had lost it really before the pandemic. I do feel like it had lost it a little bit. And we've got an opportunity now, and this is what I've used COVID for, is a few months to find out, how do we make the world a better place, and how do we change everything and make it better? And do we want to sit here in 2030 and be like, oh, 2020 was rubbish, but we're still the people we were? Or do we use 2020 as the year that we found out who we want to be moving forward? And I think that's it for me. Anyway.
Yeah, finding the positivity out of it. And
yeah, just find it a little bit and just changing to adapt again, to be better people in every aspect of the word, and give people opportunity. Make sure that people are looked after. Mental health, I think, has to be really important. I think equity and places like that, I think we really have to make sure that we're looking after our own after this when we go back. Because I don't feel like it was there before. I don't feel the resources or the respect for people's mental health was used in, especially musical theatre. People will work like horses, and that's the truth. And I think we've got an opportunity now to make it a better place.
Yeah, indeed, exactly. Just a final question I see from Hi M again is just saying, will we be seeing more of the reality presenting shows from you in the future? Is there any types that you'd like to?
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed telly. I've steered away from reality in the past a little bit because I've always, like I said, I like to keep my private life private. But to be fair, I've had enough of my private life the last 9 months. I'm a bit sick of it. So, yeah, I'd love to diversify again. I miss TV. I do miss that. That's one thing I've missed, is TV and radio and getting that buzz of that live thing. Because obviously before COVID, I did a year in theatre. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward to maybe going into some TV and presenting straight out the back. And yeah, fingers crossed. Just got to book a job.
Yeah, amazing. And on that note, booking the job, finding the job, Jaymi, it's been absolutely amazing. Can't wait to see you. Tickets will be up on sale very, very soon.
They're available now.
They're available now. They're available now.
Get them.
Fantastic. Jaymi, thank you so much, and hopefully see you soon again at CCI.
Cheers,
See ya.
mate. Bye.
Bye-bye. That was the sensational Jaymi for us, everyone. Please stay tuned because where are we? Yes, at 5 o'clock, we are going to be looking at the law of attraction with Jessica Paul. That is coming your way. See you there.